What if you knew that everything around you is about to collapse? If time had an expiration date, if the world you know was on the verge of disappearing? What if nothing you did was enough to stop the pain, the chaos, the loss? Would you despair, or would you find peace within the chaos? Because there are moments when what crumbles is not the outer world, it's the world inside us. And that's exactly where the real danger lies. Some silences are not the absence of sound, they are deep presences of something unshaken, even in the face of the end of the world. Serenity is not a gift reserved for the enlightened. It is a construction built from understood pain, from seasons of waiting, from unanswered prayers, from long nights where only the echo of your own thoughts replies. To be serene before the end is a rare virtue, but possible, because when everything collapses on the outside, what was built within remains standing. Daniel saw the end, the collapse of empires, the misery of the times, the abandonment of faith, and the rise of evil, but his soul remained silent, at peace. Untouched. Today, we'll uncover the Stoic message behind the vision of the end times and how it can prepare us for the days when all seems lost. Stay until the end, because this story may teach you what to do when the noise of the world tries to drown out your inner strength. And if this touches something within you, if this seed falls on fertile soil, consider following this channel. Here, every story is a silent compass for the soul, because peace is possible. Even in the midst of the end, Daniel was already an old man. Time had left its marks on his skin and even deeper scars on his soul. Decades earlier, he had been taken captive, torn from the land where he had grown up, where he had prayed, where he had dreamed. He saw Jerusalem fall. He saw men of power lose their heads over dreams they did not understand. He saw hope dragged through the halls of empire while he, in exile, learned to stand firm, even as those around him knelt in fear. He was no longer the young man who deciphered kings' dreams. He was someone who had endured many silences, someone who had prayed, waited, fasted, and often received no immediate answer. But now, at this specific moment in his life, the silence felt different. It wasn't just the absence of a divine voice, it was a void, a waiting that ached. For 21 days, Daniel fasted, not out of spiritual vanity, but because something within him cried out. It wasn't his eyes that sought to see, but his heart that yearned to understand. His soul was restless. He denied himself rich food, perfumes, comforts, as if trying to empty himself of all noise to finally hear what was essential. And yet, nothing, no vision, no answer, only the sound of time passing. Until, by the Tigris River, it happened. Daniel saw, not with the eyes of the flesh, but with a perception beyond the physical. A being stood before him. The figure was radiant, wrapped in a glory that was terrifying. His eyes were like flaming torches, his voice like the roar of a multitude. Daniel did not understand with his mind, he only felt. Something immense stood before him, something no intellect could translate, and his body gave way. He collapsed, strengthless, voiceless, as if the full weight of eternity had settled upon his shoulders. Then the message came, but it was not a word of comfort, nor a promise of swift redemption. What Daniel saw was what many could not bear to see: the end, wars that had not yet begun, governments that would rise only to fall, empires devoured by other empires, innocent blood spilled, nations crushed, famine, persecution, a time of anguish unlike any since men first existed. He saw kingdoms consumed by the vanity of the powerful. He saw betrayal in royal courts. He saw faith tested in the furnaces of violence. He saw evil spreading as if inevitable. Angels waged war against principalities. The spiritual and the material clashed on battlefields the common man would never see. The future unfolded like a scroll before his weary eyes, and what he saw was not immediate redemption, but deep, unavoidable, collective pain. Daniel could have screamed. He could have begged to see no more. He could have pleaded for the vision to be taken away, but he simply listened, face to the ground, body bowed, yes, but spirit awake. He did not flee the pain, he embraced it, like one who knows there are messages only understood through what wounds. Daniel's serenity was not indifference, it was wisdom, the understanding that some pains must be faced head-on, because some sufferings, rather than crushing us, sculpt us. Daniel knew it wasn't about avoiding evil, but about walking through it without corrupting one's soul. This attitude, this conscious silence in the face of chaos, is a form of strength few understand. The Stoics would call it active acceptance, not passive resignation, but the steadiness of one who knows that some things lie beyond their control. As Epictetus would say, centuries later, some things are within our control, and some are not. Daniel's response to horror was within his control, and he chose inner silence, a stillness more powerful than any shout. When the vision finally ended, the messenger did not offer promises of glory. He did not assure Daniel that all would be well. The words were harsh, final. Go, Daniel. These words are sealed until the time of the end. Go, continue, live, even without complete answers, even without knowing when it will all happen, even without understanding everything. That was how Daniel rose, not because the vision had ended, but because he had found his place in it. His body, once weak, now stood again, not by physical miracle, but by inner strength. He had not saved the world. He had not stopped a catastrophe, but he had saved himself from despair. Daniel returned to his life, not as one carrying an unbearable burden, but as one who had found meaning even in the absurd. He became a witness to what many avoid, that serenity is not born from the absence of chaos, but from the presence of purpose. There, in that moment of history, faith and reason did not oppose each other. They met, because faith is not closing one's eyes to pain. It is keeping them open and still standing. The vision of the end did not destroy Daniel. It revealed him. It revealed the man he had become through years of silent trials. A man who knew that true strength is not in stopping the storm, but in standing firm when it comes. This is the strength Stoic philosophy teaches, the virtue of preparing within for what cannot be controlled without, of understanding that the end of the world never begins on the outside. It always begins when we surrender internally to despair. Daniel did not surrender, not to fear, not to anguish, not to the need to understand everything. He accepted, he trusted, he remained, and so, he became eternal. What Daniel experienced, what he demonstrated by facing the end times without succumbing to despair, is precisely what the Stoics would call inner virtue, the steadfastness of a soul unshaken by external storms. He could not change the future, revealed to him. He could not stop the wars, the persecutions, the human suffering foretold in the vision. But there was one thing he could control: how he chose to respond. Daniel did not scream. He did not deny reality. He did not demand that God remove this burden. Instead, he did what only the wisest can do. He stood in silence and remained present before the inevitable. This is the essence of Stoicism, the courage to be whole in the moment, even when the moment is unbearable. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic masters, wrote, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The vision Daniel received could have destroyed any man. It was the collapse of civilizations, the rise of chaos, the prophecy of collective pain. But he was not disturbed, because he did not interpret the chaos as something that robbed life of meaning. He understood, perhaps not in philosophical terms, but with the wisdom of a disciplined spirit, that peace does not depend on external calm, but on the inner structure built through discipline and faith. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Daniel had no power over the events of the end, but he had mastery over his own mind. And this mastery is not an act of brute force, but of deep maturity. The Stoics called it ataraxion, unshakable tranquility born not from ignorance, but from the wisdom of knowing where our control ends, and where our inner freedom begins. Daniel's serenity was not escape. It was confrontation without foolish resistance. He did not deny the pain. He acknowledged it, and still chose to remain whole. This is the virtue of endurance. As Seneca taught, no wind is favorable to one who does not know where he is going. Daniel knew he did not need promises to keep moving. He knew his role was not to control the winds, but to adjust his sails, even if it meant sailing into the unknown. This quiet maturity, this deliberate choice not to surrender to fear, is one of the highest expressions of what it means to be Stoic. True strength is not in controlling the world, but in not letting the world control you. It is about accepting chaos, without letting it enter your inner temple. That is about seeing the end, and still believing in the soul's endurance. It is about standing firm, not because circumstances have improved, but because you have been fortified within. Daniel did not flee suffering. He looked pain in the eye, listened intently, and chose to stand. This is what Epictetus would call freedom, not the freedom of the body, but the freedom of the spirit, the freedom from being enslaved by fear. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson we can take from the vision of the end times. The end is not what destroys a man. What destroys him is the absence of inner strength when the end comes. And Daniel was made of strength. And you, are you facing your own invisible end? You may not see angels or grand visions, but deep down, you feel that something is about to collapse. The ground feels unsteady. Certainties are fragile. And the future is a foggy field where you no longer walk with the same confidence. You are waiting for answers that never came. And the silence has been deafening. Prayers whispered in sleepless nights, please repeated with sincere faith, but heaven seems silent. You wonder if you've been forgotten, or if you're simply not being heard. Meanwhile, the world around you crumbles. News of tragedy, relationships that don't last, work that drains, family that demands, friendships that fade, and the weight of anxiety, reminding you every day that something is wrong, that something big is coming and you don't know how to prepare. But what if this silence is your preparation? What if this waiting is the soil where your strength is being cultivated? What Daniel faced was not just a terrifying vision, it was a call to maturity. And maybe, without realizing it, you are being called to the same place, the place of fertile silence, the place where anguish shapes you, where waiting strengthens you. Who betrayed you and you still haven't forgiven? Who have you lost and still haven't let go? How many times have you found yourself trapped in the past, in something unresolved? You still carry the images, the sounds, the words that wounded you, like ghosts, sleeping beside you. And if, like Daniel, you had no clear answers, no guarantee that everything will turn out well, would you know how to stand firm? Would you know how to trust? Without understanding, life gives no guarantees, but it offers invitations to grow, to look inward, to build even when everything outside is in ruins. Maybe your challenge today is not defeating an external enemy, but silencing an internal chaos that settled long ago. Have you been preparing, or just waiting? Have you been strengthening your roots, or living at the mercy of the winds? Daniel's message is simple but profound. Do not wait for the end to decide your strength, because when everything collapses, then at some point, it will be too late to start building. You must begin now. Grow roots no storm can uproot. Build an inner temple where even the fear of the end cannot enter. And maybe, just maybe, what God has allowed you to see, what He has let you feel, was not punishment, it was preparation. Because some visions do not come to explain the future, but to shape the present. And the pain visiting you today may be the chisel carving out your strongest self. So the question remains, are you living your own invisible end, or are you being prepared to stand? When the end arrives, the wise man does not fear the end, because he already lives with purpose. His peace does not depend on calm, but on the firmness of his soul. Daniel did not scream, he did not fight, he did not question, he simply remained. That is courage. Silent, unshakable, stoic. If this story has stirred something deep within you, consider following this channel. Here, every narrative is a silent compass for the soul, because the world may collapse, but what we build within, no one can take away.